on deck with evil dead chick. What's in store when you open the door? Step inside, my little ones. Bring your flashlight and good luck charms. Oh, and good luck charms. Oh. Might get dark. It might get scary. Maybe even a little insane. Crawl out from under the bed. Don't be afraid. Evil Dead Chick is here to entertain and thrill. Daddy's on deck with Evil Dead Chick. Let's hang out till the sun comes up.
Howdy, gang. And I may have to get up and get Darcy in. She was the only one that wouldn't come in. The other two dogs came in right before I started the stream. But I want to welcome everybody to an all new episode of Canon Fodder. Again, this is the Golan Globus era of Canon films. Tonight I'm going to be covering Incoming Freshmen and Savage Weekend. Incoming Freshmen came out in 1979. Savage Weekend was actually filmed in 1976. It was filmed the year I was born, but it did not get released until 1980. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about that one in a second. And I do actually have a visual for Savage Weekend because I bought this a few years ago. This was released by Kino Lorber as well. So anyway, let's get to Incoming Freshmen. Incoming Freshmen, I expected it to be your standard sex comedy. Sex comedy. It was a little more goofy than I was expecting. The acting was atrocious in it. To me, it was. And, you know, I wasn't as excited about it once I started watching it because I guess I thought it was going to be, a lower budget, maybe Revenge of the Nerds or Private School or something like that. And it was like really, really, really low budget. And I didn't know any of these actors on here. The one of the professors at the college looked familiar, but I was not familiar with his name. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't seen him on something else. I just, you know, can't place him. So, you have the standard, horny guys and gals wanting to get it on at college. And you have this girl, Jane, who is just a complete innocent. She's going into the same, like when she first gets to college and she unlocks the door to the dorm room with her roommate Viv. um she's just expecting to come in there and start talking to her new roommate, and her roommate's getting it on with a guy we think is her boyfriend, but evidently Viv will take any guy that's around. She has a boyfriend, but Jane comes in and she tells Viv later, she says, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bust in there. I'm so embarrassed. You and your boyfriend were together and all that." And she said, "Oh, you know, that wasn't my boyfriend." That was just like, um, what did she say? A guy from her racquetball class or something like that. I don't know. Um, or the racquetball teacher. I'm like, well, okay. I mean, I knew that it was going to be crazy and zany and all that, but um, so then you have another girl who her name's Christy, who Jane strikes up a friendship with, and Jane is really naive. She may even be a little bit more than naive. Um, Yes, Tom, I would agree with that. Golan Globus were very lucky because it was the golden age of VHS rentals. And that's how a lot of us saw uh, these these movies for the first time. I know I did. The video, the age of the video store, really, I've said this before over and over again, really opened a lot of doors for me as far as uh, cinematic entertainment. Um, I, when my family got a VCR, I was like, wow, now all these movies virtually are at my fingertips. All I had to have was, somebody with money. This is days before I had a job. Once I got a job, I started, renting these on my own. And then when with the advent of video becoming VHS becoming more affordable, I began to buy them for my collection. And I started out with VHS and then went to DVD and then went to Blu-ray, and now I've still got a lot of Blu-ray, but I've also got 4Ks now. So a little bit more about Incoming Freshmen. You you see the interaction between, for instance, Jane and Christy, and it's obvious uh, that Christy is not into guys. I'll just say that. And that she is more into, you know, Jane. But Jane is just too naive to realize what's going on. I mean, Christy smokes cigars, little skinny cigars, but cigars nonetheless. She dresses like a man. Um, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That was obviously a comedic center point. Was look how naive Jane is. She cannot tell that this Christy is not, hot for. Um, so uh, she's just very, very naive, and she has a boyfriend back home who she just thinks is the bee's knees, that he would never do anything bad to her, that he would never mess around on her or anything like that. And unfortunately, uh, I guess evidently he would call her every night. And when her roommate Viv comes uh, back to the dorm after a night of partying and all that stuff. And basically, she said, "I should have just stayed here with you. You know, it was just so boring." Um, and then she really looks at Jane, and Jane is crying. And she said, "Hey, Jane, what's wrong?" "Well, he hasn't called, and I'm worried about him." So she remembers a friend of hers back home that, oh yeah, she, even though it's late, I bet she'll be awake. So she ends up calling her friend, and I knew what was going to happen before it happened. Jane's boyfriend is making time with her best friend, and she's she's almost so naive she doesn't even realize that that's what's going on until her ex best friend, I would say, just blurts it out for her. We thought since you weren't around and I was so close that we would get together. And so she said, but right before that, she just blurts it out. Jane says, "What are you saying? I mean, this is, some people would probably even call her stupid. You dumb bitch. You can't figure out what's going on here." I'm sure a lot of people back in the day when they watched this at the movies, or even when they watched it at home, were saying those similar things. But again, I think that was part of the comedy, that she was just so naive and unexperienced that she could not figure these things out. And you have that professor that I was talking about earlier that imagines all the girls or the ladies in his classes as when they're doing things like he wants one girl to put a push pin on a map and name all the capitals of these countries. And as he's watching her, it seems like she's taking her clothes off, which for the movie she really was, until she's completely naked. And it's evidently a fantasy for this professor because he imagines all the women taking their clothes off at some point in time. This one girl stands up and says, "The student body," and then all of a sudden she's naked. So there's a lot of, I guess you would call this more juvenile humor. And it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, really. And it, it wasn't the type of sex comedy that I grew up watching. Um, it did, dare I say it, it was a little stale in some parts. Unless, and I'm not putting guys down that want to see chicks naked. That's just, one of those things, guys are going to want to look at chicks naked. Um, they're women or otherwise, Um, although I think it's more fun for them sometimes, especially when they're young. And I hope I'm not embarrassing you, Tom. For them to be able to watch them, at their leisure, and they're watching people that they don't have any kind of connection with other than watching this movie. And it allows them to fantasize and all of that. So, I'm not interested in just having too much flash and not enough substance, because I feel like even though things like Private School, things like Revenge of the Nerds, even Risky Business and stuff like that were a little more polished. Tanya Roberts, right? See, um, I thought those had more substance to them. Yeah, I always liked Tanya Roberts. Um, I thought she was bubbly and funny and all of that. And I think, sadly, I had seen things with Tanya Roberts in them, but when I really, really, really took notice of Tanya Roberts was when she was on that 70s show playing Donna's mother, Miss Pinciotti. But in, later years, I went back and rewatched things like Tourist Trap and stuff like that, which I thought she was very good in. But guys and gals, whoever's watching, it looks like there are two of you. I'm going to take myself out of the stream for 1 sec, and I'm going to try to get Darcy in real quick before she gets wet, because it's raining. It's been raining on and off all day. So I will be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Hopefully, I won't have to go away again before this stream is over. So like I said, this movie had a lot of flash in that it showed a lot of skin. There was a lot of TNA in this, and so it didn't have any of that comedic, ha ha moments. It didn't really um, have the nudity being any kind of comedic um, type of scenario. Like when I talked about Gas Pump Girls, the comedy was comedic in that they, like that first scene, they pulled the girls' gowns off during graduation and stuff. And it was just, it was funny like that. Private School had moments like that. Plus, they had plenty of TNA, but I think it balanced out. With this movie, there really wasn't a good balance. Tommy say it was a different time. My first job was at a rental store. Now it's all streaming, no effort, no anticipation. It's not the same. I totally agree with that. It's what they would call instant gratification. And you're right, and I kind of think about that. Like, do you remember? I don't know. I can't remember, Tom, if you ever said you read or have read Stephen King. But when The Green Mile first came out in book form, it was a serial novel where you had to wait. I think there were 6 of them total. And I read it the first time around where you had to wait between each one of these little books. And it was painful, but I think it made me appreciate the story more. And it made me appreciate the end product more. Then, fast forward a few years, it comes out in one big book, and you got people saying, "Oh, the Green Mile is the greatest thing ever." It's like, cheater, because you did not read it in serial format. You read Peter Straub. I love Peter Straub too. Ghost Story, If You Could See Me Now, stuff like that. I really, really liked it. And I liked the stuff that Peter Straub did with Stephen King as well. I could go on and on about incoming freshmen, but I think you guys and gals get the hint. And so I'm going to go ahead and give it a rating. Sadly, I'm going to have to give it about, boy, that was a delay. I don't know if it showed up faster on y'all's end or what, but possibly 2.5 dead ice out of 5. But no more than that. Definitely no more than that. And I really don't see myself going back and watching that film again, ever again, because it was just below par. And that's not to say that everything that was part of that Golan Globus era of Canaan films is going to be top drawer stuff. It's just this one was a little bit too low tier for me, or low brow, or whatever. So, moving on, the next one is a horror film, like I said, called Savage Weekend. And we have Caitlin O'Haney, which those of you that watch a lot of horror movies, a lot of slasher movies, will remember her from He Knows You're Alone. David Gale's on this from Reanimator. William Sanderson. Any of y'all watch Newhart? He had the two brother Daryls, but he was in a ton of other stuff. He was in a Stephen King adaptation. Sometimes They Come Back. And he's a very, very, William Sanderson, I think, is a very, very good actor. Jeffrey David Pomerantz is also in this, as well as Christopher Allport. I forgot what happened to Christopher Allport, but he was always good in everything I saw him in. But I think he died or died at a young age, and I can't remember if it was like a car accident or what it was. He was even on a very creepy episode, Examination Day, from Twilight Zone from the 80s. He played the young boy's father in that. So this is, a slasher film. No two ways about it. But I'll tell you what got me to watch this for the first time. Now, this wasn't the first time I'd watched it. I saw it years and years ago, and I saw a picture from like a still from this movie. And what got my juices going about watching this movie was the killer's mask that he wore. It was just like a rubber mask with hair, but it was so creepy. And I don't know if y'all can see that real good. I'm trying to get the glare off of it. You see William Sanderson there, but then you see someone in a mask. And you also see the person in the mask, and they've got a hold of Caitlin O'Haney there. But that mask I was like, there's just something creepy about that. It was the killer with the mask on and a sweater with a collared shirt underneath the sweater. And they were staring at themselves in the mirror. And there was just something ultimately creepy about that. Tommy said Twilight Zone. I just saw an old 1970s movie with Vic Morrow, but it's hard to watch knowing what happened. Yeah, Vic Morrow was a great, great actor, like old school actor to me. And yes, I agree. It is, knowing what eventually happened to Vic Morrow. It is sad and hard to watch. So, I'm not going to lie to you folks. that are watching this or may watch this later, Savage Weekend is sleaze central. And it's kind of a slow burn, but I like it. I enjoy it. Now, there's some things that I have to laugh about with this because um, I had never seen, because I saw Caitlin O'Haney and He Knows You're Alone, which was her second film. Savage Weekend was her first film. And she doesn't even like horror, like a lot of people that have been in a lot of horror movies. Jamie Lee Curtis, for one, she always said, I can't watch them. Caitlin O'Haney, basically the same thing. And so there is a scene of her, like she gets naked a lot in this. There are several scenes where she's just butt naked. So if you like Caitlin O'Haney and you've never seen her naked in a film, because she doesn't get naked and He Knows You're Alone. That's why I was shocked when I watched He Knows You're Alone, and then a few years later I watched Savage Weekend. I was like, man, that's Caitlin O'Haney, and what in the world? She's just getting naked at the drop of a hat, And there is one scene, and I'm not trying to be vulgar here, gang, but there is one scene where she's completely naked with this guy and you can see his penis, but it's obvious that there's nothing going on there because I'll just stop there. You would just have to see it and see how ridiculous that scene is. That's basically the only ridiculous scene in the whole film. Now, David Gale kind of, there's a scene with cows and him taking a woman's hand and squeezing with her and squeezing the cow's udders and making the milk come out. People are going to tune into this. They're going to say, what in the heck? What is she talking about? And you kind of think, David Gale's character is weird. You think William Sanderson's character is weird. And of course, how the movie starts out, you're seeing part of the end and you're not sure what's going to happen to the main woman in this. It makes it look like William Sanderson's character of Otis is picking up a chainsaw that's running and that he's going to kill the woman with it. Now, let's back it up just a little bit in that there's a group of people, and Caitlin O'Haney's character and Marilyn Hamlin's character are sisters. And Marilyn Hamlin's character, I guess the guy that comes to pick up their son, I'm guessing they're divorced or separated. And she's involved with another guy. I think he's like a stockbroker. He's some kind of business guy. And so her ex-husband comes and picks up their little boy. And he acts weird, I think she is worried that he might do something to himself because she's talking about depression and all that stuff. And he's talking about he lost out on another job. He went and interviewed for it. And the next thing you know, they gave it to someone else. And he seems bitter. He seems angry. But he takes their child and he goes away. But Marilyn Hamlin's character hangs out with an odd group. I mean, evidently her sister, played by Caitlin O'Haney, Shirley is her character's name, is a nympho or just short of a nympho. Christopher Allport plays, he appears to be a homosexual character at the beginning, but I'm thinking that he likes both because there is a scene where him and Caitlin O'Haney or Shirley, they're kind of messing around with each other. Not doing it, but they're, it looks like they're headed in that direction. Tom, you say even Ghost Story had many full frontals and it became a bit silly when he falls down. You can clearly see his private parts. I'm glad I'm not an actor. Yeah. When I see some of the stuff these actors and actresses have to do, yeah, I'm many times I'm glad. Boy, I'm glad I'm not in their shoes. So what I meant when I said slow burn is exactly that. Some people may become bored because there's a lot of setup, because the group leaves New York and they go out to this. I mean, it seems like a backwoods area, and kind of reminds me of, like, I Spit on Your Grave area or something like that. And, everybody acts odd. David Gale's character acts odd. And by the end of the film, you figure out that he's more normal than some of the people that you thought were pretty straight laced. And he has a daughter that he obviously cares about and stuff. So there's some red herrings in here. And I had forgotten who the killer actually was between the last time I watched it and now. And so I was surprised all over again. That's what happens, well, I'm getting older, I've had COVID multiple times, so I've got brain fog. So I'm gonna forget things from time to time. So they're going to this place to just basically have a party and hang out and stuff like that. And both Shirley and her sister, like I said, played by Marilyn Hamlin, seem to both be suffering from some kind of sexual deviancy. I don't know. It's like they can't help themselves. But they get right to the edge, but they don't go over the edge, if that makes any sense. So some people might be turned off by that. They may say, I don't understand where this movie is going. But if you stick with it, the last quarter of the movie is where it really gets good for me. And that's when the mass killer is picking these people off one by one. And I'm not going to tell you who the killer is, because there may still be people that haven't had the pleasure of experiencing Savage Weekend. Now, if you can get past the, guys might not mind that. I'm sure the guys don't want to see this guy's penis. But if you stick with it, I think that you will get something out of it. Now, I'll be totally honest. The first time I saw it, I was a little turned off by it. But as I have gotten older, I think I understand what the director, David Paulson, was trying to do with this film. Like I said, it was made in 1976, but didn't actually officially get released till 4 years later in 1980. And I discovered, I did not realize this, but there is a movie that I really, really like with Klaus Kinski in it called Schizoid. I did not realize that David Paulson, that directed Savage Weekend, also directed Schizoid. I like Schizoid better than I do Savage Weekend, but I still, I like it. I liked it enough that I purchased it a few years back when Kino Lorber released it. So it's got its flaws, but a lot of movies do. And so I am going to go ahead and give this a rating. I'm going to give it, yeah, there is a big delay on my end when I'm putting these overlays up. But anyway, I'm going to give it 4 deadites out of 5. It comes maybe even a 4.5. Okay. Because I think this one's worth a watch. If you like horror films, if you like slasher films, if you like that low budget aspect to it, I think you will enjoy it. Now, again, I am not telling anyone to go out and buy this. Do not plunk down your hard earned money just because Dana says it's a pretty decent horror film. I want you to experience it for yourself, but find a for free copy first if you can. And then once you watch it, if you hate it, well, you haven't shelled out money for it, right? And if you like it really well, then you can maybe think about, purchasing it if you think it's something that you're going to watch more than once. Yeah, Klaus was a bit crazy in real life, and he was a little handsy with the women that he worked with as well, is what I've heard. I love Crawl Space too, Tom. Crawl Space is one of those, and Klaus is so creepy in that. He is so creepy in that. You remember the scene where he puts the lipstick on, and he may have some eye makeup on, but it's like, oh goodness, that is just so creepy. He was very real. Yeah, I mean, uh, people like David Schmoller. David Schmoller disliked working with Klaus Kinski so much, that, and he worked with him on Crawlspace, that he made a little short film, Please Kill Mr. Kinski. And I think that is included on the Crawlspace Blu-ray. It might be other places too. It might be on YouTube possibly or something. But I guess that's all from me for tonight. I've been on here almost a total of 40 minutes. I want to thank you, Tom, for coming in here and hanging out with me in the chat. I was really hoping that these Cannon Fodder streams would take off. They haven't so far, but maybe I need to get a little deeper into the horror aspect of the Golan Globus era of Cannon films, and like the some of the action stuff and all of that. Well, I thought people liked things like Savage Weekend, and I thought they might want to hear me talking about Incoming Freshmen and stuff, but and Gas Pump Girls last weekend. Um, but we're getting ready. I think I've got a couple more films from the 1970s, and then we're going to be moving into the 1980s Golden Globus era of Cannon films, and that might be a little more popular. I probably won't have anything tomorrow night. I'm probably going to take the night off. I've been taking Mondays and Thursdays off primarily. Friday, I think, now that's Valentine's Day, folks. And I need to talk to Candace again and make sure she still wants to do a Friday Foolish at 6. I mean, she might want to go out with her husband, for a dinner date or something like that. So I'm gonna talk to her about that. I'll probably send her a message tonight. But barring anything like that going on, we should be able to finish up our Friday Foolish, the second part of the David Lynch special that we were doing. Tom, you say YouTube is weird. Recently watched some other fantastic streams and no one showed up. Yeah, I think, I don't mean this to sound sarcastic or mean. I think sometimes it's all who you know. If you can get, and I'm not begrudging anybody doing that, but if you can get somebody to say, hey, check somebody's stuff out. And I had people say that, and I'm not trying to insult those people at all, but you kind of have to be big on YouTube and say something about somebody else that's up and coming. Um, or, have them on your shows and stuff like that. It goes back to a little bit to what you were talking about, Tom, about collabing. Unfortunately with me, I'm a little uncomfortable collabing with people I don't know. Um, and I that's probably a detriment to me that I'm like that. But I like to collab with people I already know. Unfortunately, um, there's not a lot of people asking me to be on their stuff as of late. So, you just take your lumps and keep doing it. And as long as you enjoy it, um, I don't think that it's um, fruitless. Tommy saying YouTube suggestions, love popular channels. It's all about money. Yeah, and for me, if I get, money, you know, that's a side bonus. But I've always said that I'm not on here on YouTube to make money. If I get some, great. If I don't, great. Um, but I just want to be putting out entertaining streams and videos. And in the last, I guess 6 to 8 months or so, it just really hasn't, the audience just hasn't been there. But I'm thankful for people like you and Candace and Chris that pop in, and Blissful when she's able to pop in, people like that. Um, the poet, he comes in here. Batman comes in here sometimes. Um, so you guys are what's keeping me going and keeping me putting out uh, videos and streams. But I agree with what you're saying there, Tom. Um, Also, make sure that you get your vote in if you haven't already voted for the upcoming watch alongs I'm going to be doing on February 22nd and 23rd. That's a Saturday and Sunday. There are 3 choices for each one of those days. So if you go to my channel, you should be able to see those polls. I will be locking down the polls on those this coming Monday, February, I almost said February 27th, February 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So make sure if you want to vote, make sure you get your votes in before that time. Friday, also at 9 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to be having a special bonus watch along for My Bloody Valentine, the original Canadian slasher classic, directed by George Mahalka. And I'm looking forward to doing that. If anybody's interested in joining me on the stream for that watch along, please let me know. If you're not having any late Valentine's Day festivities. And I'm going to have another Soup and Jallows. It should drop at some point on Sunday. And I'm also going to be doing a movie munchies for gory bleeding heart cakes. And that will also drop at some point on Sunday. So those are pre-recorded, so I'm not going to be live for those, but keep on the lookout for that. I'm really looking forward to making these gory bleeding heart cakes. I really, really am, in honor of Valentine's Day, which will have already passed by the time I do them, but so I think that's all. Of course, next week there will be more cannon fodder and more Dick's picks. Hopefully more Friday Foolish. Yeah, and watch alongs coming up for whichever the 2 movies are that end up getting picked on the poll. So I guess that is all for me. I've almost been on here 45 minutes. People are probably bored to tears, but I'm off like a dirty shirt. This shirt ain't dirty, but I'm off like one. Can't even talk tonight. I haven't had an ounce of alcohol, folks. Yes, watch alongs. um, but I want to remind everybody, as I always do before I get off of here for the night, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday night, folks, and I'll see everybody next time.